Hey everybody, today's episode is going to be about speakers that just didn't make the cut. By didn't make the cut, it means it was decided that it may not be a great idea to move forward with an upgrade for one reason or another. And the reason these things get sent to me all the time is the customer is either not happy with how they sound, or they're fairly happy with how they sound, but they want to bring them up to a level or two. They know maybe they were built to a price point and there were expenses spent where they needed to be in order to sell those speakers, but not spent where they needed to be in order to take the performance to the highest level. And so I get sent these things with hopes that I'll take them up a notch or two and improve the sound on them, and then the customer gets a fun project to go in and do upgrades and things like that. But they don't always make the cut. You know, sometimes there's one thing or another that is a bit of a red flag, and I have to say, you know what, it might be better to just start over, because this is an issue, or that is an issue, or it's going to be hard to solve. And I got 3 of them here I want to go over with you. And the first one is this model from NHT, and I know a lot of you guys think, well, it looks kind of odd because it's upside down. It's not really upside down, but the woofer is above the tweeter, and it's that way for a reason. And when we look at the measurements, you're going to see why it's done that way. The cabinet is beautiful. They did a nice job on the cabinet. Really nice piano black. Oddly, the binding posts are at the top of the speaker, as if they had it designed to be at the bottom, and they had them made already and decided, well, the time domain issue is such that the woofer needs to be at the top, so they just flipped it over, but they left the binding posts at the top of the speaker, which is kind of odd. You'd kind of expect those to be at the bottom, so that it's a little shorter run for the speaker cables, instead of the speaker cables plugging in almost at the top of the speaker. So first thing I do when I get these things is set it up, start taking some measurements. So let's look at some measurements on these things. The on-axis frequency response, as you can see, looks a little lumpy, and there's a little bit of a dipped out area around the crossover point, and there's a pretty big hump at 800 hertz. And that's taken on woofer axis. I also tried dropping the microphone down and taking a measurement on tweeter axis. Let's look at that frequency response. As you can see, it's dropping out quite a bit. There's a big hole that started there right at the crossover point, so it looks like they're crossing at about 2600 hertz or something like that. What's happening here is, as you drop down to the tweeter level, the time arrival of these are such that they're arriving out of phase. And the more or the further you move down with the microphone or your ear, the more these are completely out of phase with each other. So as the more you move up, from about the top of the box, they're somewhat in phase at that range. And as you go up higher, they're staying in phase for that range. But as you go lower, they're out of phase. Now, what they could have done is they could have chose a different order filter, and they could have manipulated those time delays to where they would be in phase over a range more in line with the speaker, or they could have kept it to where it would still maintain a good vertical off axis even with the tweeter on top. But this is the design choices that they went with. So to listen to this speaker and not have a big hole in response, you need to be at the top of the box. And as we look at the vertical off axis, you can see the response actually gets a little better as you move up a little higher. The horizontal off axis, it's still lumpy, and there's a little peak there around 3000, but that's not the red flag. If you look at the spectral decay, now if you see that spectral decay, you'll see at 1000 hertz, or I'm sorry, at 800 hertz where that peak was, you'll see a long decay rate coming out towards you in that spectral decay. That's because it's taking longer to expend that stored energy. So it's ringing you'd say it's ringing, or it's resonating. It's holding that signal too long. Now, I could go in this thing and I could put a notch filter right there, and I could pull some of that down and try to flatten some of that out. but you can only notch it down about 2.5, 3 dB to bring it down to flat. That's still not going to get that stored energy out of it. I could turn it down in that area by a few dB, but I can't get rid of it. So could I straighten this speaker out? Yeah, I could straighten it out. I could help this speaker, but I can't fix it completely. That issue of that ringing is still going to be there. Also, if you look at the impedance curve drops to a minimum of 4.8 ohms. So you have to keep that in mind if you're driving this speaker, that it needs to be something that's happy with a 4 ohm load. So my advice, if you want, I can try and do something with it, but you're better off starting over. For about the same monies, you could build some of our kits and blow right past this in performance in every way and not have any of those problems. So we got 2 more to go. Let's look at the next one. This one, and this NHT model over here, this I didn't mention it before. That was the SB3 model. So if you want to look that one up online, SB3 model. This one is a little Martin Logan speaker. Let me get this out from in front of the microphone. I hope that didn't sound wacky. Little Martin Logan. It's a LX16 model. And this one also just didn't quite make the cut. And the cabinets on this one are also beautiful. I mean, really, really nicely done. Beautiful cabinets. They have a nice grill, I think, that fits over them. Maybe the grill's in the box, I don't remember. But the air motion transformer type tweeter, and I think this may be a paper cone type woofer. I didn't examine it to a high degree. First thing I did is set up and take measurements. So let's look at the on-axis frequency response, and you can see it's really lumpy. And the tweeter level is quite a bit higher than the woofer. And if you start looking at the off-axis response, if you start going horizontally off-axis, it actually starts to smooth out. I noted at 30 degrees off-axis, which is pretty far off-axis, it had dropped off enough in the top end that it was pretty smooth. But everywhere else is pretty rough, and there's still the big dipped out area in the upper mid-range. Vertical off-axis on this thing maintained a pretty good response. The phase relationship of the drivers was real good as you moved up and down. A lot of that had to do with the fact that the acoustic centers are pretty close together on this model. That was another thing that also helped the little NHT. The tweeter faceplate's pretty small and the acoustic centers are close together. Anytime you can keep those drivers close together as you move up and down, you're not changing the time arrival of one versus the other as much. So it helps maintain a little better vertical off-axis response. But here's where the thing went south. If you look at the spectral decay, you'll see right in that mid-ranged area or upper mid-range, you'll see the output drop and then come back up. And there's something going on there as far as some ringing or some resonance. It could be that putting some additional stuffing in the box to keep the back wave from coming back through, that could be what's going on there down low a little bit. And there's some roughness right up there around the crossover point. But the overall, the response of the drivers themselves are pretty rough. And the impedance does drop down to 3.09 ohms. So it's right at 3 ohms. So another something to keep in mind. If you guys are looking at this speaker, it's definitely going to drop to a low impedance load, and you need something that's going to be able to handle that. So my advice, I can see what I can do with it, but you're probably better off moving on. You know, there's other speakers out there that are going to eat these up and have a lot more accurate response, and you get a pretty cabinet, but I'm sorry, the response is just not there. It's just not accurate. So sometimes it's better just to start over. Last one. This one may be a surprise to some of you guys. It was to me a little bit. This is a little Harbeth speaker, one of the little English-made speakers that are fairly popular out there. And the feedback I had to give the customer on this was the same as these other two, but for completely different reasons. Now this one, if we look at the frequency response, measures pretty well. It's a nice, smooth response. You'll see right at 4 kHz there's a little bit of a hump. and I don't know if that's at the top of the woofer's range or if it's within the tweeter's range, but there's something going on there, but it's not bad. Putting the grill on, which it has a nice little grill that slides in around the sides here. The way they designed the grill, it slides in and it doesn't create a frame rail around the outside, which typically causes a lot of diffraction problems. So that was kind of cool that the way the grill slid in, and it actually measured a little smoother with the grill on, which is unusual. Most speakers measure a lot worse with the grill on. This one was a little bit better. If we look at the horizontal off axis, it drops off pretty well. It's a little lumpy there up top due to some of the surface reflection area there and the tweeter's response. Vertical off axis looks great. As we move up and down, some of those peaks in the tweeter's response smooth out a little bit. If we look at the impedance curve, the impedance looks okay. It doesn't drop to a really low ohm load. And at the very top of the tweeter's range, the impedance is kind of high at that end. But overall, not a problem driving this speaker. It's a sealed box also. Spectral decay. If you look at the spectral decay of the woofer's range, it's really smooth. It's only up there around 4 kHz where you see a little bit of stored energy there from that peak, but it's not bad at all. So it measures so well. Why not go in and upgrade all the parts quality, and let's try to make something out of this thing and turn it into a really high-end speaker. Is there some room there to upgrade the parts quality? Well, there's a reason that this thing measures as smooth as it does. They've put so many parts on this thing to correct it all along the way that it can't help but have a smooth response. There are tons of parts in the signal path, and they're all super cheesy parts. I mean, the worst of the worst here. There's 5 inductors in this thing. 5 of them. And they're all iron core inductors. They're all small gauge iron core inductors. The caps aren't even a polypropylene cap. They're just an inexpensive cap, maybe a little mylar cap or something. And the resistors are all sand cast. And if you take a magnet to the binding post, you'll see those are steel screws or steel nuts on those things as well. That's also in the signal path. So the wire is just PVC jacketed wire. There's push-on connectors on everything at the driver end. This is not what you would expect at a speaker at this price point. This is the cheapest parts you can buy almost. And what's sad is they did a pretty good job engineering the speaker and getting a nice response. And from what I can tell, these are pretty nice drivers. They're very well thought of in the industry, and a lot of people love the sound. Now, one thing I'll mention too is the way the cabinets are built, they're designed to have a little bit of cabinet resonance to them and have a little bloom down in that lower vocal region to give them a little coloration that a lot of people like. It's coloration, still, it's not true to the input signal. Anytime your speaker is becoming an instrument, that's not a good thing. You want the speaker to not be an instrument and faithfully reproduce the signal that's being sent. These typically, of this brand, do not. They typically build what we refer to as a lossy cabinet. So, can we go in and just upgrade all these parts? Well, we could. But we start replacing all of these parts with good quality polycaps and air core inductors. They're never going to fit in this speaker. They're never going to fit on here. Just the 5 inductors alone would be stacked on a double layer board to keep them separated, and they would fill this whole back of this cabinet here, let alone all the other parts. So it would be something to where, to make this into a better sounding speaker, it would require mounting the whole crossover externally, because it's never going to fit in this box. So you have to start thinking, well, is it worth it? And how many parts is that? That's a lot of parts. I didn't even count them. There's probably 30-something parts on these things on a 2-way speaker. What's that going to cost in good quality parts? So you have to start doing the math and thinking, you know what? This doesn't make any sense. For a little speaker like this, there's better options. I mean, every kit that we offer, from the little X Bravo to the little XLS Encore, we're jumping up in performance in big steps over this speaker. This holds these back a lot. I know a lot of people like the sound, that British sound in it, but you're not going to get detail and resolution out of parts like this. You're going to get soft. It's balanced, but don't expect resolution levels, detail levels, imaging, and things within the soundstage to be as layered as they would be if we did away with a lot of that smearing and a better signal transfer through higher quality parts. It's just a given. We do this all the time. We know what happens to the signal when you use that level of parts versus when you use much higher quality level of parts. There's a lot to gain there. And this one just wasn't worth it. It just isn't worth it. Start over. So we don't always get to do upgrades on everything that comes in. We give the customer that feedback and let them decide what do you want us to do. But in some of these cases, the recommendation is start over. It's a better path. And it's that way sometimes with a lot of vintage speakers too. A lot of these older speakers, they really weren't designed that well to begin with. So to rebuild some of those around an old cabinet sometimes doesn't make any sense. So that's it for this episode. I appreciate you guys sending these in. Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in the next video.